Dip, 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 dip. Toys everywhere, toys everywhere for Littlefoot. Have you all noticed? I am positive you have. So let's gab, let's chat, let's gossip, let's talk, let's analyze the unbelievable difference in society in just 10 years. I think of it more of like it's like society shrink. I don't go to malls very often. I know most of us don't go to malls very often anymore. But I went to the mall here locally, and I walked into a couple of stores. I had something to go pick up there, and then I just walked into some other stores too. I mean, it's unbelievably hot here, so air conditioning, yay! And a few different things struck me during this experience. I walked into Apple, and then a couple of random stores I'd never seen or heard of before because I don't go to the mall enough to know. And then I walked into a couple of stores that were clearly owned by a family who'd rented out, a storefront in the mall, and were giving it a go, which is awesome. I always try, if I can, to buy from a company where I'm looking the owner in the face, or perhaps the daughter of the owner, doing that shift with a couple employees or whatever it might be. Or maybe there's one corner store close to us that's run by a Greek family, and the son runs the show, and he's in there 6 days a week, which is fantastic. I love to see that. And you can buy your everything from anywhere. And I do believe in this idea of voting with your wallet, or voting with your wealth. And I'm standing in the Apple store. 10 minutes, nobody helping, nobody doing anything. 20 minutes, nothing. Looking around, a couple of other people standing by tables. I see a couple of people walk in, look around, go check in with the person whose job it is to check people in and set them up with some kind of help. And I realized I'm here because I finally need, the reason I went to the mall is I need to update my phone. My phone is going to be completely outdated. I can't update it anymore. It's not going to be able to hang on, and I got to do that. So here I am trying to figure out, how can I score some kind of discount on a trade-in, and then also buy the phone without having to owe money to, some provider for 36 or 24 months because it locks you into a contract. I don't want to be in a contract. I like my plan the way it is, and I kind of just want to own the thing. So is that possible? So I'm standing there, and I've put some money aside for a while to be able to do this, not particularly wealthy, but enough that I could, after 4 months or so, I have enough to put aside a little bit to buy a phone and then pay it off gradually by putting it on a card or whatever it is. And I'm standing there, I'm thinking, nobody's helping. I've worked in retail. I've done retail or, outward facing sales for about 15 years of my life. And I thought, it doesn't matter if I walk out of here right now. It doesn't matter at all. And this company is obviously communicating that to me. Now, about 10, 15 years ago, when malls were still relatively full of people, 20 years ago, when they were bristling with retail prowess and retail therapy, and it was a hangout as a third place. We all had money for that. I realized, man, it doesn't matter if I walk out of here and go, well, I'll just take my money somewhere else, because they don't need my money at all. It doesn't matter to them if I don't buy a phone from them. It's irrelevant for them. They have so much money, it is completely irrelevant. And there were a couple other stores in the mall that had that same thing, because they are so wealthy, it doesn't matter if they get my money. It actually doesn't matter for two reasons. One, because they don't need the money. And the other one is they've got me locked into an ecosystem of their product range that if by the time we all stop, let's say we did do the one power that's available to us, the people, we the people, is to just act as a unit and understand that if we all collectively do the same thing, not like little lemmings, but if we all understand, hey, we're not going to shop over here because they just do not regard their customer, they don't care about your money, they don't care about any of those things, then we have power. But In the 3-ish years, 2-ish, 3-ish years of let's just say we all do that and when nobody goes and buys a product from Apple. Okay, I'm not saying Apple is not unique to this. There are tons of companies like this. Microsoft is one of them too. Nvidia is one of them. IBM is one of them. There are quite a few of them. Amazon is one of them. Netflix. If you just don't buy their product, they have positioned themselves in such a way that either you are dependent on their ecosystem, as I am with Apple, and many of you are as well. So within 2 or 3 years, you're going to be back for another product. It's a little bit like making you love the brand Disney as a kid and then remaking a lot of the stuff when you're an adult and you have kids because you want to share that with your child. So they've kind of hooked you as a kid so that you will hook your kid for them. And so the cycle continues in that way, right? It's not evil. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just apathetic. And that is wrong, in my opinion, especially when you're selling a user experience, when you're selling convenience, you're selling technology, personal technology, or imagination and fantasy and storytelling, these kinds of things that are kind of essential to the human experience. So I'm standing in Apple and I realize my one power, I have actually gradually forfeit, which is, to put my chin up and go, I'm not shopping here. I'm going to take my money elsewhere. Because that is voting with my wallet. But they've already stripped me of my vote because they don't need it. There weren't even a lot of people in there. And they don't need it. There were more employees than there were people. And there were several of us not getting help. Now, look, it could have been a training day. It could have been people trying to figure out how to do it. How do you put on the blue t-shirt, Then I walked out of the store. I didn't buy the phone. I walked out of the store and I walked past a few different clothing brands and I realized, what is Vuittori? I don't know this brand. I know a couple of the really fancy ones, like Armani and Gucci and Louis Vuitton. I know those. Christian Dior. I know those. And Canal. But I see 6 or 7 brands. Cotton On. When did Cotton On get everywhere? Is it Cotton On or Cotton On? I don't even know. And is it all cotton? Is it part of the circuit economy? Is it sustainable? All these things that we've decided we now need to care about and look at, and I'm sure they're important in their own right, but I realized most of those brands that I don't know, they're actually all owned by the same company. In the same way my dad worked in pharma for years, and he said, was a neurosurgeon who went into pharma, and he said, the best thing you can hope for is you create something, you create a drug or a pharmaceutical or some sort of technology or some evolution of a technology that is so essential, one of the really big companies buys you up and then you get rich and then that's that, right? That's not necessarily the guy that he is, but that is the idea within pharma. It's the idea within fashion too. And it's also the idea within tech, because this is literally just the structure of how our society has begun to function. And there was once a thing called monopoly law. The last time I remember hearing about monopoly law, this was in the early 2000s with almost a Macintosh, with Microsoft. And they got split. And then I didn't follow the story, I'll admit that, but that was the last time monopoly law was openly discussed. And I recognize that now that we've digitized everything and everything's sort of hyper-convenienced, and everything is about getting the product at the cheapest possible way to the customer. So as long as the customer has a cheap price, the government doesn't really regard the monopoly law. But tell me that Amazon is not a monopoly. Come on. Tell me that, assuming the Paramount merger with Warner Brothers, it does or doesn't go through, Netflix is a monopoly. If Netflix got Warner Brothers, that's it. That is a monopoly, completely, indisputably. But things are still coming together there. What I'm really playing at here is there is such an incredible separation that is an erosion of the sort of midpoint, the same thing we saw in the economy where there's the erosion of the middle class. The middle class is in some ways is that mortar or maybe the bridge between the poverty island and the rich island, where you're able to, if you can successfully do so, go from one to the other if that's what you want. But all of a sudden, the choices at the mall are companies who literally do not care if I buy anything from them at all, which means as a customer, I am irrelevant to them. Or stores that are barely hanging on and the entire family has to work there, because there's a whole nother level to this, which is you can't get somebody to work for a regular pay, say 20 an hour, 17.50 an hour, if even that, and still provide a quality performance, a quality profession, a quality delivery. If I go into any one of those stores, and I did, the customer service is porous at best. It is an absolute joke. It is as if they are paying the hourly, almost a salary, the hourly wage. I wish they were getting a salary. I bet they wish they were getting a salary too, but you got to earn a salary. A wage is how you learn how to navigate the economy and money and savings. And then eventually with your skill set, ideally you get to a place where you can have a salary. Ideally. The customer service was almost like an inconvenience. It was like, how dare I walk in right now? This is what everybody's doing when you walk in. Hi, welcome. Can I help you find anything? What? Yeah, maybe the door that I just walked in, because I'm going to walk out again. What am I here for if not an experience? It's retail. It's a retail experience. I don't need more shirts or pants. I have them. I don't need more shoes. I don't need any one of the things you have to offer. My wife has a million candles with different scents. We don't need anything in here. We have soap. We have every kind of bath product there is. We don't need anything in your store. But if you give me an experience, if you have something to share about your product range, maybe I would buy something anyway, because you are not just there to facilitate the operating of the store. You're there to incentivize the purchase. So you have one side of it that are companies that are having a really, really hard time hiring anybody worth their salt, anybody worth even coming up and talking to, anybody who can talk to you as a human being. Where you go, do you have this in a size whatever it is? And they go, no. You didn't even go check. Going and checking for the size is part of the performance. You go back and you go, we don't have it, we can order it in. Or do you want to try half a size down? Do you want to try half a size up? Depending on the customer. And so these people also never cultivate what it is to talk to a bunch of different people. It is a true gift getting to work in a busy retail location, in ideally a place with a lot of tourists, because you are going to cultivate more of your own personality. You're going to get smarter. You're going to get better at interacting with people. You're going to get better at first impressions. But the thing that's super essential is you also get really good at reading people right away. I'm telling you, you do that enough. You spend 100 days working in a retail location, delivering some customer service over an entire year, which is not a lot. You're going to learn a ton about how to interact with people. You probably have a friend or two who actually had parents that made them go get a job, and that person decided to go out and actually give it a go. And that person changed. It wasn't just that they retired more because now they have an income and they have to do something after work, or after school, but they actually ended up talking differently, speaking to people in a different way. All of a sudden, a year and a half later, that person has a girlfriend. Not an accident. Really not an accident. These are not coincidences. They're all related in some greater sense. All of a sudden, so-and-so has gone up 0.5 in their GPA because they went out and got a job. She's now interacting with people. She knows how to deal with men in different ways because she's interacting with people every single day. It's incredible how quickly you then cultivate an ability to meeting people in private or in other places in life that's not their workplace, and knowing, oh, you've worked in customer service, or you've been a hostess, you've been a bartender. I can tell. It's the same thing that you learn when when one of your friends is a little less good at communicating and sharing, and then a year later you find out that they're an only child, or that they were homeschooled, and you go, oh, right, that's what it is. They're homeschooled or they're an only child. There's just a way that people cultivate their ability to communicate that's different when you go out and you do these things. So you've got on one hand a company that does not care if you buy anything from them at all, because they do not need anything from you, to the point at which it's almost silly that they even have a retail location. And then another company that is minuscule in size, and they can't keep anybody in there because, well, the two people who are actually the family, they're working double time because they're trying to make sure their store stays open. And the other ones, they're a little bit bitter because they've imagined that the people who are related to the family that own the store are probably exactly like the people who are related to the brand down the down the breezeway in the mall that are trillionaires. They're not at all. That's the difference. And if we don't understand that not showing up and doing your best when you're being, in your opinion, undercompensated, and you're right, I'm sure you're right, I'm sure you're worth way more, but it cannot be the case that you get paid, let's go with $15 an hour to go stand in a store that sells socks. It cannot be the case that in order for you to show up with a good attitude, you need even more money. You work for $15 an hour, you do your best, and you earn a little bit more. Yes, absolutely. It should not be 50 cents more a year. It should be $2.50 or something like that. And there should be an opportunity to move up the ladder. But did you actually try your hardest? Did you actually bring your best attitude? Did you leave all your BS at home? No, you didn't. No, I didn't. Because that thing, that hypnosis machine that I'm talking into right now, that you all are watching me in right now, odds are, it's sitting in my pocket at work. So how am I supposed to leave anything at home? Because I carried it with me in my pocket. So look, there's a huge aspect of malls dying that has to do with the fact that we are ordering things in and they're at home. But what are you going to do when you literally can't try the thing on before it gets sent to you? And then it doesn't fit and you have to go send it back. I worked in high-end denim sales for 4 years on Manhattan. I'm telling you right now, finding the right pair of jeans to fit every single woman is impossible. Women's bodies are so different. They vary so much. And it's not just a size thing. It's a shape thing too. This is tough. Imagine if you have to find the right pair of jeans through an ordering and return service. It's going to be like 6 months for you to find the right pair. And then when you do find the right pair, you're going to buy the entire color in that size run. Or all the colors in that size. One of the two. I think you get it. And now you're going to look the same. There's going to be nothing unique about the way you express yourself. And it feels like society shrunk, but it didn't. It's that we decided not to participate and bring our best when we were the ones on the bottom. So how on earth are we supposed to expect that anybody else does it? And then you go back over to Apple, where people are walking around in like whatever they woke up in and their shoes, and then they put on a blue t-shirt that's wrinkled half the time. And one of them is blind. Literally, one of them was blind. I love that they hire people with any kind of disability. I don't think that there should be any sort of exclusion because of that. But we're not going to have a deaf person run the traffic enforcement, are we? Because they can't stand in the middle of the intersection doing this and this because they don't know where the car is coming from. That's ridiculous. In that same way, how is a blind person going to come over and help me set up my computer? It's not in Braille. God bless him, right? I also don't want a blind cab driver or a blind Uber driver. That's insanity. So in this world of they don't need my money, it's not just they don't need my money, it's they don't need money at all. So they could just throw it away at all this kinds of stuff. And like I saw one of the employees helping the blind employee pick the right thing out of one of these hidden drawers and then walk it over to the person who was buying it, who then had to figure out how to buy it themselves. That's like hyper inefficiency in a way that I can't even relate to. God bless them, again, sincerely. But there's a person down the hall, down the breezeway, who's making $15 an hour, and they don't even want to be there, and they don't want to sell socks. They have no opinions on socks. Maybe they swap. Maybe we consider the merit of the entire thing before we've literally lost the middle, and all of the big companies, they just one day, when there are 4 or 5 anchor stores and nothing in between, the mall closes because eventually those anchor stores, they go, well, we'll just build our own retail location somewhere and have everybody come to us. We don't have to pay rent. Why would we do that? The forever focus on the bottom line. It actually doesn't work at all. And I don't agree that you have to pay extra for good customer service. I believe that you have to pay your employee properly so that they can have a life that allows them enough R&R in their private time that by the time they go back to work the next day or a couple days later, they're refreshed and they're ready to go. But that is both being compensated properly and also living a life that's healthy enough and one you're present enough in that you actually have the ability to recharge when you're not working, as opposed to sitting around being pissed and bothered that you have to go back to work the next day. So it works. There is a harmony there where we can actually create this midpoint where you walk into a mall and every single store has a reason to be in it. And you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be treated like you shouldn't be there or like you're a problem. because you're the one that's walking in there trying to help the place stay alive, and they're trying to make a product for you that actually improves your existence. There is another issue in the world of, I guess, customer service is the term, and it's tipping. Tipping has not just gone crazy, it is absolutely out of control. If I go into one more cafe or one more coffee truck or a taco truck, and they flip that screen to me, and it doesn't say, would you like to tip? It says, do you want to give 30, 25, or 20% in tip? Do I want to add a fifth or a third to my purchase price for what are we talking about? Tips used to be earned. You got a fat tip because you delivered amazing service, and that incentivized you because the person that's been here for 2 years, they've got these things down, they've got their rhetoric, they always have a couple of jokes, you hear them over and over because they're using the same jokes, but they don't know that. The patron doesn't know that. The diners, they don't know that. Maybe they do, maybe they like hearing it, but it doesn't get tired for them at all. And then, oh my God, they're getting a 50% tip. What is going on? These people are coming in, they're each getting a cup of coffee, they're getting a slice of pie, and they're leaving $20 on a $5.75 bill. That's insane. What's going on? You see that enough and you pick up your game. You see that enough and you realize, oh, I could actually make a life out of this. But I see that. I really, really never go to Starbucks just because there was an experience. Okay. There was an experience at a Starbucks in Tampa. We used to make a thing in the morning out of going and getting some coffee and then driving around town a little bit, getting up really early. So we did it before work started. And it was kind of our way of connecting with each other and talking to each other as a couple before inevitably the day's activities would, pull us in different directions. And this Starbucks was on the corner of two busy streets, and you'd go in on the side, and then you go, if it was busy, you would have to snake through the entire parking lot in a line to go through the drive-through, at which point it's way faster to just go inside. Somebody had finally had it and parked their black Subaru Outback across the entrance to the parking lot and left it running, walked inside, ordered coffee, waited 17 minutes, I know because I timed it, to get their drink, and then got back into their car and drove off. In that time, nobody else got served in the drive-thru because you couldn't get out of the driveway. So we just all had to sit there and wait. And Starbucks didn't care. They served the person anyway. This was a 6'2" ginger in thong sandals. I'll never forget him for as long as I live. I didn't go to Starbucks for 3 years after that. Do you think they cared? Do you think that had any effect on their bottom line at all? No, because I just need to sit there and take it. Now, I've gone to Starbucks twice. Both times, it was $7.30 for a grande drink. And then they want a tip in the drive-thru. What am I tipping you for? I'm paying you for the drink. Why am I tipping you? If I'm in the cafe and you come over and check on me, say what's up, maybe it's pleasant to interact with you at the check stand or something like that, maybe I'll tip you. Cool. But what are we doing? What's going on? You go to like a one-off craft brewery or a one-off cafe or maybe 1 out of 5 in a local chain, they do give you the 30, 25, 20% option. And then you go other and press $1 and feel bad about yourself for tipping the amount you tipped on a pickup order. What happened to earning it? What happened to making a difference, cultivating your skill set, connecting with the customer, providing an experience that was memorable, and a product that's good, by the way? We haven't even talked about the product. And then you expect a tip that is so exorbitant and presented in such a guilt-ridden way that you almost feel like you don't have the right to. And then if you don't tip, are they going to screw up your drink? Are you going to get a lesser quality? So now I have to overcompensate you again for proper customer service and the product being made in a way that is, at least a representation of the average. Starbucks specifically is guilty of this because Starbucks brought in the third wave coffee movement. That means, literally, third wave coffee means you can provide an expert level of coffee identically every single time. They don't. Pretty much ever. They're decent. It's fine. but it's not great. It's certainly not $7 and like 31 cents for a grande. That's ridiculous. It's completely insane. And then a tip on top. So now I'm going in and I'm paying what I used to pay for lunch when I was living in New York for a cup of coffee that is like an average cup of coffee. My income hasn't kept up with that. Your income certainly also hasn't kept up with that. None of our income has kept up with that. But for some reason, we still kind of capitulate to it. And this is I have this theory that men and women commit crime differently, but they end up with the same amount of profiteering. A man, let's say we all want to steal a Subway sandwich, a foot-long Subway sandwich, right? A man walks in, has them prep it, snatches it, and runs off. That's a singular instance where you've committed a crime. It's a single moment to zero in on as the time it went wrong. A woman walks in, has the sandwich made, and then flirts her way to 2 inches at a time over a couple of days. She also got away with a free foot-long sandwich, didn't she? Yeah. But she's smarter than I am because she didn't go, I'm going to snatch it and run. She got it one bit at a time, so it didn't register as a single moment where things changed and went bad. In this exact same way, the price gradually goes up, little by little fee here, little extra tax there, a little recycling tax, little straw tax. And then all of a sudden, what used to be $5.45 is now $7.31. And please give a tip. How's anybody supposed to manage that? That's an increase that you can't keep up with at all. Maybe if you got a promotion, sure, but promotions aren't linear. Sometimes it takes 2 years, sometimes it takes 5, sometimes you have to wait for somebody to either retire or expire. And it manifests in a lot of different places, in a lot of different ways in our society. This thing, I think of it kind of like a society shrink or societal shrink, where our individual lives get smaller and smaller, but that space isn't left open. It's filled by companies that get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And yes, look, some of them provide lives for an entire family. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them do. And that's great. That brings me to our delivery services. DoorDash, Uber Eats, what used to be Postmates and Seamless. It used to be you ordered some food, it got delivered. Yes, you could totally go to the store and get the ingredients and make it yourself, and you absolutely should. You don't always have the ability to do that. Sometimes you're going to order it in the same way that you would have gone out to eat, and that's kind of like the step down from going out to eat. But now, I had an order through Uber Eats. It was a $34 order, and there was $9.51 in fees on top, and then it asked me, do I want to do a $14, $17, or $21 tip? And they do this little cutesy UI manipulation thing where it's like, thank you, you're great, you're awesome, I love you, as if that's what the different percentages indicate. No, they don't. Is somebody going to drive differently because you gave them a bigger tip? No, they're not. And then the price, so those fees, they go up and up and up, and then they couple it with, well, you could get a membership. You get a monthly membership. It's just $10, and we'll take like a percentage or 3% off of the fee. And then, oh, you know what? If you use this particular credit card, then instead of getting 3% back, we'll give you 6, just for this season, incentivizing you. And if you do the premium, we'll throw in a streamer service where our ad will run every 11 minutes. Taking your time, which is also currency, your attention, which is also a currency, just so that you can get your food delivered. With that tip, I was paying about 70% of the order's price on top in just a fee and a tip. Now, I want to tip that driver, but I looked into it. That fee is for the driver. Great, give it to them. I know you don't, but give it to them. They're already using their car. Another place where your life gets a little bit small, a little bit more shrinkish, and everything else gets a little bit more bigly. And then I saw something on my way home from this mall that absolutely frosted my cookies. My God. Have you seen these little DoorDash bugs? These little red things that are made to look cute, kind of like how they forced Grogu on you in the Mandalorian series because you're obsessed with Yoda and they want to give you like the puppy version of it, but there's absolutely no reason for him to be there other than to manipulate you and get your kid to go, oh my God, I want that. Buy me the toy. Yeah, exactly. We all know each other. We've been here. This is not new for any of us. It's driving around and its front lights, it clearly is supposed to look like a miniature version of the VW Bug that has, kind of like Disney, had a iteration in the 70s and 60s that we all thought was amazing and is now out in a newer version. Granted, it came out in like 2004, but the van back then is now back again here, right? The ID Buzz. So these little red things, they drive around, and inside of it, it opens up, there's a meal. This thing is delivering your food. So it goes to the restaurant. The restaurant now has to come out and put it into the thing. Normally, you have to go up to the counter, or some of these restaurants, they've created a different place for people to come and wait to grab it. And then you put it in the thing, and the thing drives somewhat cautiously, sort of successfully, but not entirely, all the way to the person who wants the food. Do you mean to tell me that you can cultivate a delivery service that's fully automated and run by robots, and that's cheaper than just sharing a larger profit margin with the people who are actually doing the driving? Yeah, no, you're not. That's not true. You could just do that. You could just share it with the driver. But the choice isn't that. The choice is to have an automated service so that you can, one, keep more of the money for yourself, and two, have complete autonomy over your entire working fleet, because you don't have to deal with people anymore. And that's what tracks back to companies that don't need your money and companies who desperately need your money, but they can't find somebody who's personable enough to get you to want to spend it, because we constantly pull apart. And if those two islands, the poverty island and the rich island, they get so far apart, the bridge that is the middle class can't keep it together anymore, they will literally disaggregate from one another in a way that can never, ever be bridged again. And eventually you either have to choose to slowly die or go work for the rich people, because that's the only option. Got to go work for them because, well, we got to eat, right? We got to get it. So all of a sudden, this thing that seemed like a nice alternative, if you're a little too busy for a while, you're going through a period where you have a lot of projects to do, you've got an extra thing at work. So yeah, we get it delivered and somebody's going to show up and have a personal experience with you and say, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. It's my food. Yeah, it's been driven in a car. Okay, cool. Whatever, it'd be driven in a car if I wouldn't picked it up anyway. To a robot that is screwing up traffic, because they do. I can't figure out if I'm supposed to respect that as like a cyclist, a motorcycle, or another car. Fees, extra tip, robot, bridging the two islands, complete schism, and all of a sudden we also don't know how to talk to each other. Couple that with the fact that we've had a massive disintegration in third spaces. Third spaces is you've got work or school, and then you've got your home. And then you have your third place. Like, where do you go? Do you go to the hunting club, which doesn't exist anymore? Do you go to Magic the Gathering meeting, which does exist in some places if you have a social cohesion enough to make that? Do you go and play field hockey with the girls? Do you have knitting club? Do you have reading club? Do you go on walks? Do you go on jogs? Maybe you go and do yoga together. Is it a third place where you cultivate something? It's not as frequent as it used to be at all. In fact, a lot of people have written really interesting books about this. And I don't read, so I can't tell you any of them. And you end up with this perpetual degradation of your everyday life that gets more and more expensive while getting a lower and lower version of quality from that thing. And eventually, we have to sit back and go, okay, what do we want the next 10 years to look like? As a people, as a group, what do we want it to look like? If you just take it in your city alone, let's pick some random city, I don't know, Buffalo, New York. Nobody ever talks about Buffalo. Let's talk about Buffalo. Let's say everybody in Buffalo decides, you know what? We're not shopping at Whole Foods anymore because the quality is not as good as they claim it is, and the prices are way too high. And you know what? We don't like that they're pricing out a lot of the places that are our local grocers. And there was a family that had a grocery chain called the Kelvins, and now Kelvins everywhere are closed. But at least the Kelvins were from here, At least there was the Kelvin Center. At least there was the Kelvin sponsored park, the Kelvin storefront or shorefront park. At least they sponsored that downtown monument. That was something. What are we getting from Whole Foods? Amazon, which is now what owns Whole Foods? A tech company where we've gone from individual people to archetypes to identities to numbers. Final observation, and this all happened in the same day, which is like, it really got on my tits, man. I used to use eBay a lot. I have a store. I've had it for 14 years, 5 stars. I've always made sure that I delivered good customer service in whatever way you can at a distance, package it right, price it fairly, let people decide how much they want to spend on it. and follow up after and all that stuff. 166 reviews last time I looked, and like 250 sales over about 13, 14 years. Decent, right? Not like a huge thing. It's not my business, but it's done it from time to time. And I haven't used it for about 2 years. So I posted a couple of things because my wife wanted to sell some of her fandom clothes, her Our Universe or Disney or Harry Potter stuff, little cardigans, dresses, fun jeans with like different characters printed on them, that kind of stuff. And I posted them and they got no views. I'm not talking bids. I'm not talking interest. I'm just saying somebody who clicked it and looked at it. Not one view on a 7-day auction. Those would have normally gotten somewhere between 50 and 60 views. Maybe not a sale, not necessarily, but views. And after 1 or 2 cycles, somebody would have put in like an offer or a bid or something. Not one view. So I looked into it. Every single online retailer now practices pay to play. You now have to, so eBay takes about 13.5% to 14% off of a sale. Once it sells, that's how they make their money. One of the perks of it is they give you discounted shipping. Unless you use pirate shipping, you'll get the exact same rate for absolutely no money. And they now ask you, hey, do you want to promote your listing? 90% of listings are promoted, and you'll get way more views. And all you do is you give us 3 to 5% more on the sale. So they haven't raised their base fee because that makes the news and people get pissed. What they've done is they've found another way to chip away at the profit margin you have in place for them. Your life shrinks a little bit and it's taken up by them. So you now have an option to give them more money to give you the exact same reach that you had 2 years ago. Same thing happens on Amazon. Same thing happens at Walmart. And the reason they could do that is because they don't need your money. You can't go, fine, I will take my services elsewhere. I'll take my talents to Cleveland. I don't care. It really infuriated me because you don't go on eBay because you're rich. You go on eBay because you have something that might have a little bit more value than just donating it. And we donate a lot of stuff. There was a bunch of clothes, there were like 4 bags, and there are a few things that we thought maybe this will be worth something more. And I wanted to go to somebody who's actually a fan of this thing, who's going to look for it, as opposed to somebody like a Buffalo Exchange or a Plato's Closet. Great, love your service. It's awesome. I'm not dogging that at all. Those are also places that are not these macro corporations. And then there's obviously donating things like Children's International, which we do with about, I'd say 80% of the clothes ultimately, and the games and all that stuff. But all of a sudden, you go on eBay and you get absolutely no traction because you're not paying even more than what you were already paying. I've gone to other services, OfferUp, Let Go is what it used to be called, Mercari, because for a while there, they at least had the balls to play around with, well, what happens if we offset the fee on the buyer? What happens if we split it? What happens if we lower it to 10% only? I walked away from that service because they actually only protect the buyer, and they have literally helped people steal, which sucks. It's a risk you unfortunately take. Craigslist, same thing in terms of a place that you can list something, but if you want it to be really seen, it helps if you throw some more money in there. So eBay has now gone from this place that felt a little bit like an opportunity to expose extrovert your products to an entire, or your stuff, your antiques, whatever, to an entire world, to, hey, you got to pay us even more just to do that. That's what the grocery store is, man. Like, you don't realize how few companies are actually represented in a grocery store until you recognize that every single grocery store has a lot of the same products, because it's just a macro corporation paying for the placement on the aisle. Every single thing in the grocery store is placed specifically where it is because the company is paying for a particular categorization of product placement. You think Trader Joe's is an exception to this? They're owned by Aldi, which is a gigantic German retailer. And they buy an entire line of products so no one else can use it, Trader Joe's, and then they repackage it and they put it on their shelves. Trader Joe's is awesome. I worked for them for years. Love that company. Like their products a lot too. But they are also susceptible to this stuff. That's why if you go from one store to another and it's the same brand, like a Safeway or an Albertsons, you think, and then what is it, Ralph's and Vaughn's, a couple others, you think that you've gone to a different company, but you haven't. You're in the same company's location. It's just colored differently now. The products are the same. They're pretty much placed in the exact same place because the companies that pay them are paying them for where it's placed, because the pay-to-play game is going on between them. And eBay does a pay-to-play between us, the seller, and you, the buyer, or you, the seller, and us, the buyer. But they are taking now close to 1/5 of the sale price. And if the customer even gets close to an ad for a product that you have listed, they will say that the customer got there because of an ad placed by eBay, and now they get 7% or 9%. That's insane. For what? For a server and a website with a user experience and a payout mechanism that is okay, but kind of subpar? So all of this boils down to, for me, is what are you and I going to do? What are we actually going to do? You and me, what are we actually going to do? Are we going to unify and go, hey, we're slowly going to teach each other that if we just don't go with that product, or that product line or that company or that brand, eventually they close. And then we just have to have a rock in our stomach about the whole experience from all the people who end up losing their jobs because, well, now they got to work somewhere else. Something else will grow. Something else will come. Something else will replace that thing. What if everybody decided that they're not going to go with a specific mortgage lender anymore? That might be exciting. What if everybody takes their money out of the stock market? What happens? What actually happens if we all just sit back, cross our arms, and take our ball and go home? What actually happens? You know, if you leave something in your cart in an online vendor for long enough, eventually they give you a discount. Might be worth trying a version of that. Because we do need each other. We do. But this is a completely abusive dynamic, and that social shrink, that societal shrink where your life keeps getting smaller and the space they take up, their elbow room, keeps getting bigger. You're feeling that. I'm feeling that. Everybody's feeling that. And it's awful. And instead of continuing to accommodate an anonymous, amalgamous, giant corporate mass, maybe we make room for our neighbors instead, or ourselves, or our kids, or our partners, or our pets, or our parents. It's entirely possible. But we have to be willing to go through some discomfort and a lack of convenience for a little while in the grand scheme of life, 2 or 3 years, and the landscape changes completely. I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, kill them with indifference. And I thought that was a really fascinating idea because indifference, everybody who's a loudmouth, everybody who preaches outrage, a lot of the garbage that's online now, if you just are totally indifferent to it, it does disappear. It's easy to, when you really care about something or someone, or maybe you are really tribal about a person or a brand that they are, it's very easy to think, well, no, we can't do that because, well, the opposition, the other people, the other whatever, they'll come in and they'll take and they'll do. No, they won't, because they're also being killed by indifference. And indifference is very specifically the word. It's not apathy, it's not hate, it's not malice, it's just indifference. The entire world would get so much easier and so much better if what is effectively known as a populist way of doing things changes and goes away. If people can't get there because we stop electing kings and queens, or we stop electing prom kings and queens and accept that they aren't going to do the job and insist instead on a king or a queen, it's going to make the entire world better, especially our local world. So that idea of killing with indifference, I think, is also a way to just unify, because you'll see each other. One of the things I love about being in traffic sometimes is when you see 2 motorcycle riders pass each other and they give each other the little hands down here somewhere, you know, you see each other because they're part of a group, a little tribe. There's no reason we can't do that with each other. And maybe the third place we create in society is the invisible one between all of us, where it's actually just kind of nice to be around each other because we all kind of stand up for each other and you know everybody has each other's back. Every time I talk to somebody who was once in the service and I ask them, what do you miss most? And they go, the camaraderie, the guys. Every time I talk to an athlete, I have a couple of friends who are retired pro athletes, they go, what do you miss? The guys, the locker room, the camaraderie, the togetherness. man, that's available to us. We can literally do that. We just have to trust each other enough. And I think that trust being eroded is actually the very power bank that fuels this whole separation of the incredibly wealthy from the impoverished, and ultimately disintegrates this midpoint where people have a little bit of hope. So yeah, the Apple Store at the mall. They really should have helped me. Have a good one, guys.